tenets, if you like, of the IB is to create agency within the environment, the learning environment. This is for teachers as well as for students. Agency meaning giving you a voice, giving you the ability to be able to decide how you want to learn, and not necessarily what you want to learn, because we have standards, right? So
yeah,
you've got to learn something in grade 6, and you know, we've got to cover content. But how you learn that is important, because that's the curiosity part you're talking about.
yeah,
right. So you know, if I love technology, or I've got an interest in football, or you know, if I've got passions and hobbies, and you want me to learn how to research and investigate, if you allow me to research and investigate within the confounds of what my passion is, I'm more likely to be curious about it and to do it. Yeah, so this is kind of where I'm coming from, you know, and then there's the connection. The other big IB tenet is the connection to real life. That learning shouldn't be a theory. Learning should be about practice. It should be about reality. You know, so if hello, young man.
hello, Sam. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm okay. I'm okay.
What did you buy?
Well, no more groceries, eggs, like you suggested. Yeah,
I did say. I know when somebody goes out in the morning, it's eggs they're gonna get.
Well, I bought eggs, some water, some cereal. You know.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
I'm good to see. You said water. That's good. That means you're looking after your health.
Yeah. Oh,
you're buying the good stuff. There you go.
Water.
Look,
yes.
Look,
yes.
Can you tell me, is it true? You're in the UK, right?
Yes.
Is it true that in the UK we've stopped drinking water from the tap?
Yes. In fact, I'll tell you this. I've been here now for over 15 years.
Right.
I have never drank water from a tap.
Wow.
Now, there's nothing wrong with it, but see, I came from Nigeria and I wasn't drinking water from a tap.
Okay, so it's habit.
Okay, so it's just habit.
Yeah.
So when I came here, the first day, I drank bottled water, that has continued today.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. It's just shocking for me because, you know, here in Cairo,
yes,
we drink bottled water all the time.
Okay.
But you know, I growing up in the UK, we used to drink from the tap, and it was something which some people. So when people told me now that they don't, I was shocked to be honest.
Yeah. And I think the shops are making bundles of money on it.
Really?
Yeah.
I bet
because if you go to the water aisle, there are so many different brands.
Oh yeah.
Bottled water.
Yeah.
Okay. Flavored ones. You know?
Yeah, they put a bit of lemon in it. Put the price up by another pound. Yeah.
I mean, in the summer, the brand I buy, it's always nearly out of stock.
All right.
So I have to get a more expensive brand.
Okay.
And the price has increased based on inflation and the summer heat and all that.
It's crazy.
The prices have increased nearly double.
Everything's increasing. Everything's increasing.
Yeah.
Except the things we want.
Yeah.
Everything's increasing. All right. Should we kick in? Because I'm a bit worried that my camera battery dies. I don't know. This is I don't know how it works. But
I hope not.
Yeah, I hope not. If it does, we'll have to think of another solution. But
all right. So let's start. Start by telling my audience who you are and what you do.
Okay. Right. So my name's Sam Welbeck. I'm a husband. I better say that first. My wife might be listening. I'm a father. I'm a teacher. I'm a school leader. I started teaching in 2010, which is not very long, actually, in my field, in the educational field. And I came from an IT background. I was quickly identified as someone with potential, and then I started moving sort of through the ranks. Yeah, so I became, like a team leader, and then HOD, and then I was in the executive office. I was in charge of sort of exam creation for the region. I won't say the company. I've left them now. And assessment creation and pacing, and then I was headhunted by the company that I'm currently with to found a new school, and I did that. That went very well. So an IB school called Monarch Heliopolis International School went very well. It's now a fantastic school in Cairo. The company then opened a new school called Carlton College, which is in a suburb called Shuruk, which is adjacent to Cairo. And at that point, they wanted me to found that school. So I did. And now I'm academic director for both schools, looking after sort of policy and curriculum. And I'm also heading Carlton until the handover to the new principal there. Yeah, there's lots happening. Lots happening. In a short time.
A lot happening. Yeah. So just for us to get about, to understand your career as an educator, just tell us what's your role, the a little details of the role you play as policy director.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't want to go into to bore your listeners with the details, but generally my job is to focus on the sort of the latest research-based methods for teaching and learning, and to create sustainable and consistent policy to improve the work that we do every day. That's it in a nutshell. I mean, if I wasn't going to go into sort of the detail, what does that mean on a day-to-day basis?
Good.
Well, I'm not sitting writing policy every day. I mean, that doesn't work that way. But what I am responsible for is making sure that it's there. And that means collaborating with some fantastic leaders who I have in the team. It means meeting with them, discussing what they're doing, and finding out what their needs are. I do things the other way around. I don't know everything, and I know that, and I don't pretend to know everything. So what I do is I have people around me that do know a lot more about the sections that they are responsible for. I sit with them, I learn from them, and I take what they say, and I try to put that into a system that would work for us all, align those systems vertically, horizontally, and then try to present it in some sort of document that we can all read and follow. That's basically it.
Okay. So that's in a nutshell, that's your role.
Yes.
Okay. Good. So now, see, I've had so many discussions with so many people across Africa, and one thing we all talk about is that about the declining standards of education. I mean, I'm not in Africa, so I tend to listen and take what people who are on ground tell me.
Okay.
What's your view about the declining standards in Africa, in our education? Is it real?
Look, I'm in North Africa, and there is a distinction between North Africa and what I call Black Africa, which is under that belt at the top, where you've got sort of Egypt, and then you've got Egypt, and then you've got Tunisia, and you've got Algeria and Morocco, and then that's kind of the top end. I'm not sure when we talk about Africa, I think that even though it's the one continent, and I would love for everyone to think that all these are connected, I don't think in reality they are, in the way that they're treated or perceived. So if we're talking about Black Africa, then I would say, look, I'm not there either. I grew up in the UK. I've never lived in Africa, although I visited Ghana a lot, because that's where I'm from. That's where my mother is, where my father are from. But is there a decline? I don't know. I don't know what it was like to begin with. But what I will say is our standards.
I did.
Okay, so you can probably help me out here.
In fact, I've never done any formal education outside Nigeria.
Okay, so if you tell me what were standards like before, then I can tell you whether they've declined. So let me give you an example. Right? Was there a consistent monitoring and collection of your views and opinions of what you need to help your education as a student? Was that happening in the school you were in as you were growing up?
Formally, no, it never
There
happened.
you go.
Now, but like I told you when we first talked, my father is an educator. Okay.
Right.
So for us, my father and mother, okay. So for me in the house, yes. Okay. We did that. And I saw my father do it for so many of his students. Okay. They come to him in the house, they sit down and talk. See, they go through what they want to do. And my father advises them. Okay. So for me, it happened. But formally in school, it never happened.
Right.
Okay. So see, that may be a modern way of education, which never really happened in my time. Okay. Now, having said that, I went to my secondary school, for example, is the first secondary school in Nigeria. So at the time I was there, it was pretty good. Okay. Many of my classmates are all around the world making wave.
All right.
Okay. So we had a solid secondary school at my time. But talking to people around the kind of area I grew up, okay, when I talk to them, they don't seem to get the standard of the kind of the discussions we have doesn't seem to show me that they have learned so much in school.
Right.
Okay? So for me, looking from outside, it looks it's not good. It's not as good as it was. Now, many of our youths in Nigeria, my country, for example, are out of school.
Oh wow!
So it's not looking good. You know.
Right.
Yeah. So go on.
I was just going to say, what's difficult when we ask questions like that is what are the indicators that we are measuring against?
Yeah.
You know, when we talk about whether something has declined or not, we need a place to start. And
exactly.
then we can look at where we are and say, okay, well, what's the difference? But it's really difficult in a world which is constantly changing. So, you know, today we live in a very technical or technological environment. To what capacity do schools have reach or access to the technologies which are needed to prepare kids for tomorrow? That would be an indicator which would be difficult to compare to the past because maybe we didn't need it then. But what you mentioned, you picked on something which is a perception, which is, you know, that when you speak to young people today, they don't seem to have that sort of all-rounded education that maybe you had growing up. And we can't throw that out. You may not have statistics to back up what you're saying, but it's a perception. It's something that you feel when you speak to people. And I actually have the same perception. And I think a lot of people probably do. So, you know, if we were to use that as an indicator, just one tiny indicator, then we could say possibly yes. There has been a decline in what the expectations are for students when they leave. And I think part of that is, strangely enough, and this is a bit ironic, and it might seem like I'm talking about two things, but it's connected to what schools are responsible for nowadays. Schools have changed. Schools are no longer responsible for making sure that you know page 1 to 100 in the textbook and can name every date and a person and can do every mathematical formula. That's not the only thing schools are meant to do. Schools are meant to create good citizens that transform environments and are change agents and you know can communicate well. And there's just so much now that we're responsible for as school leaders that I think trying to compare is difficult. One thing I will say is I think the standard of education in terms of knowledge and content has reduced. I think it's gone down. I think what we were capable of doing, and my generation, and I won't say how old I am because that's but in my day, in the UK, what we were expected to produce in terms of assessment at the end of school I don't feel that kids today are expected to do quite the same thing. I think some of
I
these
know.
exams are easier. I think GCSEs and A-levels are easier today, and I'm probably going to get shot down for that. But
no, not I wouldn't shut it down because sorry, my daughter, my oldest daughter is in A level. My second daughter is going to do her GCSE next year. So okay. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you've seen the kind of work that they're doing. You know, I'm not saying that the grades are invalid. These kids work extremely hard, and we've got to be extremely proud of them. But what I am saying is those who are responsible for creating the environments, the assessments, etc., have lessened the
standards.
Yes. The standard in which people need to pass.
I will agree with you. Yeah.
And I think there are some valid reasons for doing that. Like I said, there's a lot more that schools now have to cover. So, you know, there may not be the kind of time and focus on content and knowledge that there once was. So I think there are reasons for that, but it doesn't stop that being the case. That's kind of what I'm alluding to.
Well, you talked about we don't have standards to compare. Well, I think if the policy demands a standard assessment, key indicators, you know, and yes, if we institute key indicators, then we can use that to compare from year to year and era to era. So,
that would help. It's sometimes difficult, but you're right. Yes, that is what would be needed in order to do that. I saw something recently, and it was an Egyptian paper. Now, it was an old Egyptian exam from the 1960s, I believe, and it was a grade 6 examination assessment, right? And this is in Egypt, and I was absolutely shocked at the level. It was on Facebook, and it was with a lot of comments which were in Arabic, and my Arabic's really terrible, so I wasn't able to keep up with everything. But those who were commenting in English were basically saying that this is the kind of work which is now done at university.
Yeah.
And in 1960, grade 6 kids were doing that work, and you know, it's only a perception. I don't have the stats. I don't have the sort of empirical statistics or research to back up what I'm saying. It's a perception, but I think their perception is held by a lot of people, and you know, that gives it some validity. You know, we're not all crazy. I know everybody thinks their era was the best, so we've got to be cognizant of that. But I think there is a perception that standards have lessened in regards to what is required.
I get you. So Sam, capacity building is essential in Africa development. Okay. And for me, it starts by improving literacy, and igniting the flames of curiosity in our young population. So how can we do this consistently, in formal education, and what are the real issues that can derail it?
That's a big question, big question. Literacy and building capacity. Literacy is such a it's a difficult one, literacy, because it covers so much. When we talk about literacy, are we talking about reading?
Reading and writing. That's the basics.
Sure. And it is. Reading is the basics of learning, and it always has been. And the ability to read changes people's
everything.
Ability to understand, comprehend, and therefore be able to use whatever they've learned in new capacities. That's what learning is all about. If we're going to ignite the flames, you mentioned that in particular, of curiosity in young people, I think we've got to create an environment where leading is something which they want to do. That's first and foremost, right? We live in a different world. The kids are not interested in reading as much as they were, because they've got so many avenues by which they can learn, and especially video and audio, which they're much more interested in. Right? Let's face it. I mean, your everyday kid no matter which country it's in, whether you're in Africa or whether you're in outside of Africa, you give a kid a book and an iPad, he'll pick the iPad.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So first and foremost, we've got to create an environment for reading, but we've got to do it within the context of the people that we are trying to help. So put the book on the iPad. I mean, I'm not being facetious here. I'm not trying to be smart, Alec. I mean it quite sincerely. Let's step into the world in which they are, and let's construct the environment within that world instead of trying to drag them into ours. Because ours is gone. Ours is gone. It's not the same.
Yeah.
Right? This is number one. Number two, let kids choose their topics. If you're going to get kids interested in reading, then we have to be prepared to ensure that whatever they're reading is something interesting to them. Right? So let them choose the topics of the things that they want to read. And let's try to connect whatever they're reading to real life so they can see the relevance of it.
Okay.
I'm coming from an IB school background, and this is, I'm not sure if how much your listeners know about the IB, the International Baccalaureate.
No, tell us.
It's a system. It's a learning methodology. It's a practice. You get lots of information about it online. There are thousands of schools all around the world that adopt it, and one of the tenets, if you like, of the IB is to create agency within the environment, the learning environment. This is for teachers as well as for students. Agency meaning giving you a voice, giving you the ability to be able to decide how you want to learn, and not necessarily what you want to learn, because we have standards, right? So you've got to learn something in grade 6, and we've got to cover content. But how you learn that is important, because that's the curiosity part you're talking about. Yeah. Right. So if I love technology, or I've got an interest in football, or if I've got passions and hobbies, and you want me to learn how to research and investigate, if you allow me to research and investigate within the confounds of what my passion is, I'm more likely to be curious about it and to do it. Yeah, so this is kind of where I'm coming from, and then there's the connection. The other big IB tenet is the connection to real life. That learning shouldn't be a theory. Learning should be about practice. It should be about reality. So if we're going to learn to investigate something, let's investigate something real. Let's see the difference between how we used to do something in the past, maybe, and how we do it now. If we're reading about how certain things were done in the past, and then we're just going to sit at a paper and write about what people used to do, what's the benefit? But if we were to read about what people did in the past, and then we were to interview our grandparents, great-grandparents, if we're lucky enough to still have them around, and do a comparison there, get their points of view, and then interview each other about how we do the same thing now, we could then write an essay which is connected.
Perfect.
There you go, to real life, and has purpose. Something that we can take on and say, okay, well, this can help us in understanding changing human behavior, in understanding evolution. How change,
evolution of education, of practice,
absolutely. And then take it one step further. What should we do in the future? Based on what we've now learned, how can we help and advocate for those who are coming next? So now you've taken reading and literacy and you've put it in a real life context. And I think this will spark curiosity within people because it's connected to them, rather than just being a theoretical and
endeavor.
It's boring. In other words, we've got to. How many? Look, really, if you've got if your listeners are listening and they've got kids at home, right? You don't have to be an educator to understand. That the word boring is on the lips of every kid. It only takes 5 minutes, and your kid is looking at you. What's wrong?
I hear it every time I talk to my 15-year-old daughter. It's boring. It's boring. It's boring. Their attention span is short. And I think that actually my own daughter took me up on that phrase not long ago. She said, "Dad, it's not that our attention span is small. It's that the ability for people to interest us is small." I took that on board. So again, we need to make the change. They are used to things happening quickly, fast. They're used to information coming to them at a rate of speed.
we need to make sure that we adapt the way in which we teach so that they can learn at that rate instead of trying to drag them into our world. It's not going to work. You mentioned reading, discussing plots and ethics and relationships when we read. You know, it's not enough. Go read this book, come back and answer these 10 questions. You know, what did Tom do when he entered the house? Who cares? Who's Tom and which house? Well, who cares, right? But, you know, when Tom entered the house, he did this. What does that mean to you? How do you feel about that? What would you have done in his place? The discussions we have around reading make reading more exciting, because now you're not just reading to read the content and to answer questions on the content, but you're reading to have some connection to you as a person, to your society, to the relationships you're used to seeing. And this, I think, is the difference between you know, reading for capacity and reading for change. You know, let's make it reading for change, and then the capacity will come. This is
See,
what I think.
Tom, Sam, all you have just talked about.
You just call me Tom.
Yes.
You see, it's working. I'm a teacher. You see, now I've got Tom in your head.
Yes.
Right. I haven't lost it yet.
Yeah, no, you haven't lost me. So see, all the things you just talked about are the kind of things my father did with me when I was young. You see, today I love to read. I love to read.
Excellent.
Okay. And that comes from the things I did as a 10-year-old person.
Right.
Okay. See, when I was a teenager, I used to go out playing, but I tell my daughters, I'm out playing with my friends, and I just remember something exciting. What is it? I remember, a book I'm reading at home. I run from the playground back home just to pick up from where I left.
Right.
You see, I wish I could excite my daughters to dig into the world of books.
Right.
I will take your advice. I will try to implement it.
No, good. Good. And you know, your daughters are probably much more interested in video than they are in books.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but have the conversation around the video. You still use the same strategies. I mean, you know, a series that they're watching will have characters, plot, it will have ethics, it will have relationships.
My A-level daughter just asked me to buy these books.
Okay.
They
look expensive.
I bought them. I've sent the picture to her.
Right.
That I bought the books you want. She hasn't said anything because most likely she's not looking forward to it.
Yeah, you know, it is hard. It is hard building that curiosity within kids. I think we got to start young, number one.
Yeah.
We've got to start young, and we've got to have these conversations that I was talking about around reading. And, you know, when they are older, we can still do it. If they are more interested in video, let's find video which is connected to books. Because, you know, for example, Game of Thrones, right? Huge series, widely popular around the world. Everybody loved it. Nowhere near as good as the book. I read all the books. I've still got them upstairs. All the books. And every time I come across a young person talking about Game of Thrones, I say, you know, go check out the book. I try to throw the book at them. And what I do is I show them how certain scenes in the book, in the series that they saw, were really described, and the detail that they missed in the series. And, you know, it hasn't worked for everyone, but for those who I did manage to convince to pick the book up, they haven't put it down. You know, and I think, you know, if we can make that connection, then, you know, we'll be getting closer.
My daughter says she wants to be an actor. So I try to entice her by introducing her to the likes of Wole Soyinka. You know? Yeah. And I try to talk about some of those books I've read and what the plots are. Right. I'm struggling. Yeah.
You know, the question is, you know, if she wants to be an actor, you know, what does she need to read? And you know, if the answer is, well, she can get most of her training from sort of face-to-face or videos, or then by all means let her do that. We can't force kids to read.
No.
We can't. But definitely, I think there will be benefits to to her reading books about people that she aspires to be like. Autobiographies, for example. That's one way. And again, what we're doing, we're connecting it to their passions. So here's an autobiography by a famous actor. I thought you might like it. There's a brilliant thing that happened to him, which is very similar to you on page 94. Good luck. Now, you never know. She might go to page 94. Next thing you know, she's read the whole book, So we need to try and make these connections.
Very good. Very good. Thank you for that. So, do you have the numbers of qualified teachers we need to educate our young ones? I mean, do you have maybe an estimate?
Right. You mean in any particular school or
proportion?
What all teachers need to be qualified.
Let me redefine that. See,
right.
Again, I go back to my home country.
Right.
Okay. I've seen videos and heard of so many unqualified teachers.
Okay.
Teaching young people. And not only are they not qualified to teach the subjects that they're supposed to teach, but their communication ability is lacking.
Right.
Okay. And I think that's one of the reasons why we have so many young people in my country who are not very excited to study. Okay. So my question is that maybe not the number, but the proportion of teachers, qualified teachers to students we need, because I also believe that we don't have enough of teachers in the first place. Then we talk about the qualified teachers. So we have a lot of work to do in our education sector.
Yeah.
And we might encourage or entice people to become teachers.
I'm with you. It's a tough one, this.
It is.
Okay, it really is. I would, the blanket answer is that all teachers should be qualified. But when we talk about qualifications for teaching, we normally talk about having gone through teacher training in some shape or form. Like here in the MENA, in the Middle East and North Africa, it's, at the moment, it's all about having a PGCE, postgraduate certification in education, which is the British training method. You can come in with different states, because in America you have different certifications from different states. So you can come in with any of those, or you can have a Bachelor of Education in which is accepted by most international schools, which is fine. And in Egypt here there is also a I'm not sure what the qualification is called, but it's Bachelor of Education basically. You can have done your undergraduate in education, and that affords you the ability to teach. But what you're talking about and what you just mentioned is something which I want to touch on, which is what a teacher actually is.
Yes.
I don't believe that simply being qualified to teach because you've got a certification makes you a good teacher. It might make you capable to be able to pass on information in particular subjects and know the strategies and methods which have been research-based and how people should be learning those. But will a kid learn from you? Not necessarily. All right. In order for a kid to learn from you, first of all, you have to have the ability to be able to communicate. You have to have the ability to be able to understand each learner in your classroom, or at least the groups of learners in your classroom, understand what motivates them, what their passions are, understand how to get their attention, understand how to make them think, not tell them what to think, but how to think, understand how to spark curiosity, discussion, inquiry. A good teacher is one that when the bell goes, kids don't run out.
Yeah. Yeah.
They want to hang around because they just love being in your company. And so when we talk about qualified teachers, I think we've got to, well, I would like to anyway. I'd like to change what qualified teacher is about. I'd like school leaders to start thinking more about the types of people that they're employing and can train. And I'd like school leaders, like we do, we develop capacity within our school.
Good.
We hire people with the very basics, right? When it comes to, so let's say, for example, you've got a bachelor's degree in education, right? Or like most international schools, you have a bachelor's degree in the subject that you're going to teach. The next thing I'm looking for is the type of person you are, how you're able to connect to young people, how you're able to connect to me, just in that short interview that we're doing, how you're able to come up with ideas about how to get this content across, how much you think about what kids need in order to improve as individuals and not just within the curriculum.
Yeah.
Time management, research methods, their ability to lead, their ability to work within groups, their ability to think, forget outside of the box, like there's no box, their ability, their ability to work independently. And let's develop all of that. If you're a person that can demonstrate to me that you have those skills, as far as I'm concerned, you're probably more qualified than somebody who comes to me with a certification. And the best way for that to happen, I think, is to develop that capacity within your school. So we've put a lot of focus at my company on building leadership capacity, on creating leaders that are able to train teachers. And when you do that, you are more likely to get what you need, because finding these people through interview alone from outside and bringing them in is time consuming, it's difficult, it's challenging, but having that capacity to build teachers within the school means that you're bringing people in and you are building them, creating potential within them, and then effectively you're helping the learners within the classroom.
Yeah.
So you need professional development. That is the key. You need to be able to create trainers who can continuously monitor, who can check on practices, and who can allow teachers to become independent in their progression, to be able to take on action research, to be able to create PLCs, we call these professional learning communities, which look at the data that you have and what we can do with it and how we can turn current practices into better practices. All of this can happen within the school environment, within the learning environment itself. And you can create what we've just discussed as being qualified teachers yourself. So first you need the leadership in order to be able to do that.
Good.
And to some extent the resources.
So one of the major issues affecting development in Africa overall, is leadership. Okay. Right. So first, I saw on your LinkedIn page about a transformational leader. Okay.
Right.
So I want you to talk about that. Okay.
Okay.
Give examples and link it directly to leadership in education.
Okay. Crikey. I describe myself as a transformational leader. And one of the reasons I think I do that is because the way in which I lead is to try to change the mindset. I think that's what transformational leadership is about. It's about somebody who is entering into an organization or entering into a culture and changing the mindset in that organization with regards to how to achieve the goals. And how the people within the organization perceive what we need to do and how, right? So let me give an example. The way in which I lead here in my schools in Cairo is transformational because it goes against the grain of what leadership is supposed to be. I've started something. It will be very difficult for other leaders who follow me to go back on it now. But people, for example, are used to being able to tell me if they think I'm wrong. That is not something which existed before. It's not part of the culture here. it is, you know, it's when you are in charge, the idea is that you have this big desk and everyone should speak to you in a certain manner, and you make all the decisions, and you can effectively dictate the direction, the goals, the you know,
the outcomes, everything,
the priorities, everything, right?
everything.
And what I tried to do when I came along is to say, right, first of all, we, not me, we are doing this as a team, and I need everybody to be on board here. And that means, number one, that we need to build a vision. I might be responsible for that vision, and I have my vision, but I can't implement that vision without you. So the first thing that needs to happen is I need buy-in from you as leaders, which means that you need the ability to tell me when I need to explain something, when you think it's wrong, what your ideas are. And I remember one time being told by HR that I was a little bit soft because they felt that people in school liked me and felt that they weren't afraid of me. And this was, you know, and I remember I was, if I'm honest, I was a little bit hurt by that comment, because what it translated to me was that they were questioning how good I was as a leader, and I wanted to be a good leader. So I was beginning to ask myself, was my strategy working within this setting, within this environment, within this culture, within the traditions here in this country, in my city, in my school? But I stuck to it. And actually, this is what we talk about when we say transformation. We talk about changing the mindset of people. Over time, they have begun to realize that it wasn't that I was being nice, is that I was trying to create a certain environment, an environment which is not run by fear, but rather is run by shared goals and a vision and a loyalty towards those goals. That can't happen if you're afraid to speak. If you think what we're doing is not going to take us where we all want to go, and you are afraid to say it, you are a hindrance to the journey. You're not helping in the journey. So the first thing I had to do was smash that amongst the people that I work with. My door is open. And when I say open, I mean literally it's open. Kids walk in. I can be in meetings with parents sometimes who are coming to the school, and then all of a sudden there'll be a knock on the door. And the door is open anyway, so they can see the person standing. And it's a little kid, you know, it's a grade 4 kid or a grade 3 kid. And you know, and I look at them and straight away they say, Mr. Welbeck, I need to talk to you. And this happened and that. And I go, hey, look, I'm in a meeting. Right?
Yeah.
And the parents
Ali,
are shocked.
It's Ali again.
Right. It's the Ali issue, right. Parents are shocked. They're shocked. They can't believe that this kid has the audacity to come to the academic director's office. Why not? Why not? Isn't the child, the learner, the focus of everything that we do at school? So why are we so shocked that the learner, the focus, the person we say this is all about, why are we so shocked that that person will feel empowered enough to come along and say, look, there's something I want to discuss? My
father would love this episode.
You know what? Let's chat with him. Why don't you bring him on?
Nah, not today.
No, because it sounds like I would love to talk to him as well.
You sound just like my father. Yeah. See,
he's an educator.
Yeah, he's an educator.
Yeah.
Okay. You sound like my father. See, I will tell you something about my father.
Go on.
I get angry at him a lot. Okay. But yet, even when I'm angry with him, I can never stop talking to him.
Okay.
That will tell you something. Okay. I get angry at him, but I can never stop talking with him.
Right.
See, some days ago, we spent 2 hours on WhatsApp talking. My father now is 77. So
okay.
Yeah, he's retired, but then we talk all the time. You know, and good. he's still an educator first and foremost. Right. You know,
that will never change within him. And you know what? I'm going to take a stab in the dark here. Okay. Right. I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why you never stop talking to him.
Yes.
Because he inspires you.
Oh yeah.
This is what it's about.
Yes,
right? Your
I
father
know.
is an educator and he's a leader. He inspires you. And that is another part of what this transformational leadership is about. You see, when you do take the risk to come into an environment and say, we're not reaching our goals this way, here's what we need to do. And you give people voice, you give people opportunity, you support them, you do all of these things as a leader, you begin to transform the culture and the mindset.
Yeah.
And you inspire people to want to do better. And that is really what it's all about. Let me tell you a little story, right? I think Africa has a major "do you know who I am" problem.
Oh yeah.
Right? We're talking about Africa. We're talking about leadership. Africa has a "do you know who I am" problem, right? In the professional sphere, and probably in an outer society as well. But I don't live in Black Africa. Like I said, I live in North Africa.
Yeah.
So I can't comment in terms of society. I don't live there, but I never have lived there. So
well, I will tell you. Yes, we do have.
It's true, is it?
Yes. At least in Nigeria. Yes, we do have it.
It's the same in Ghana. The same in Ghana. I visit Ghana, like I said, and I see that around. Now, I once got a call, some years and years ago. I got a call from my office. Please, can I come down to the reception because there's a parent there who's really, really angry. I went down, and I assumed it was going to be one of our existing parents. It wasn't. It was somebody who had come into the school unannounced. He wanted information, and this was to do with admissions and the possibility of his kids coming to see us. Now, remember, we're a private international school.
Yeah.
So he's effectively is a client, right? We're a business. At the end of the day, this is a client. So now this becomes a priority for me, is to ensure that we are servicing potential clients well. I can't go to the board and tell them we're doing anything other than that. So I spoke to him, hello, so, tried to find out what's wrong. He was extremely upset, and he was pointing most of his anger at a lady who is what we call the PLO. She's the Parent Liaison Officer. Right? Okay. Nothing to do with Palestine. She's the Parent Liaison Officer. And her job is she's the manager of the front office as well, and she handles the admissions. Yeah. So I went to see her, and look, what's wrong? What's going on? Why is this guy so upset? She's really good with people. This is her job, right? She's really good with people, and she was nearly in tears. He'd insulted her. He had been very brash and rude in the way in which he'd spoken, and he'd only come there for information. I mean, we owed him nothing. And I know this lady, for her to be in that sort of state meant that this guy has done something. So she followed me out. We went back from her office back into the reception, and I went and I apologized to the guy while she was standing there. But I also said, look, I've just been told that you have done this and this, and you've been acting in this way. Is that true? And his answer was kind of, yeah, well, she didn't treat me right. And I said to him, look, I'm sorry. All right? Sorry, sir. I don't know you. I don't know who you are. Because he told me you don't know who I am. That phrase came out. I don't know who you are, but I know her. I know her. She's a woman that has put her kids aside to be here on many occasions. She's a woman that stays behind until the work is done. She's a woman that has stood beside me in the decision-making that has allowed this environment to prosper and to become better. So I know her, but I don't know you. I'm sorry. I don't know who you are. He was furious, and he ended up leaving, spouting some names that I think are supposed to be important for who I didn't know who those people were. And even at the end of it, he said to me, Mr. Welbeck, he mentioned so-and-so and this person and that person, you sure you should have, treated him that way? And I didn't treat him badly. I just refused to take his nonsense and put that in front of looking after my existing staff. And I said to her, I don't care who he knows, to be quite frank. I know you, and I know how important you are to this organization. Yeah. He can go find another school. She's still with me. This was years ago. She's still with me. She's still one of my most loyal employees. She's somebody that I love dearly, somebody that I admire dearly, and I respect dearly. And our organization is 200% better because of her being there. And I know that she will carry that with her for a very long time. This is what we talk about. When we talk about transformation, I get the best out of her now because she has a loyalty towards the goals which we've set.
Yeah.
And this is what I mean when I talk about
now. Listen to yourself. You don't say they will be loyal to you. You say they will be loyal to the vision and the goals.
Absolutely.
Very, very different and very, very important.
And said purposefully. It's not about me. I'm a leader, but my job is to support, to inspire, to motivate, to encourage. I'm a servant. I am a servant.
Very good.
I'm there for everyone else to lean on. That's what leadership is about.
Yeah.
I'm there to lean on in everything. I'm not talking about when they're down and sad. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about to lean on when they need the help. Yeah. I'm talking about to inspire them to be better. I'm talking about to be a role model to them. I'm talking about somebody that they can bounce ideas off, that they can make mistakes with and be told, it's okay. Do you know what I mean? This is what it's about. Now, what I find in Africa, when we go back to Africa again, is that when I look at, and I don't know them well, I'm not that well versed in African politics. I'm not going to dare go into that in depth because I'll be caught out. I know where my knowledge is and where it isn't, right? But I have perceptions, and I, as far as I'm concerned, perceptions to a degree are valid because when I talk to other people, the perceptions are still there. When it comes to leadership in Africa, this is what we lack. This idea that you are a servant to the people, we lack this. African leadership, whether it's in the professional sphere or when it comes to the political sphere, is plagued by having leaders who consider that seat as something which belongs to them.
Yep.
It isn't yours. The seat belongs to the people. You have the opportunity to serve the people from that seat. And instead, what you're doing is you are using that seat, that position, for your own gain and your own benefit. Yeah. And until that changes, we're gonna have issues.
Wow. See, you just talked about what one of my earlier guests, Abel Ejiofor, talked about servant leadership.
Okay.
We need that very much. We need that very much. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
One.
Yeah. So I see the strong correlation between values and leadership. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Is there a correlation between leadership and education?
Oh, God,
okay.
Yeah.
The level of or kind of education of the so-called leaders.
Yes, my God, definitely. Look, I started my career in IT. I never meant to become an educator. The reason I think I've stuck to it, because it doesn't pay. Right?
Yes.
I wish it paid. If it paid, oh my God, what an amazing life I would have. Unfortunately, it doesn't pay. But what it does have is it gives you as an educator lots of rewards. The main reward being that you are involved in change in so many ways and so many aspects.
Yeah.
And when we talk about leadership and education, there is a correlation because I think the purpose of education is to create good leadership. That's it.
Yep.
That's it. And good leadership is about change. We've just been talking about transformational change.
Yes.
It's about change for the better.
Yes.
So there is an absolute direct correlation between the two. Leadership is everything, and good leadership can have an effect on generations and generations and generations. Where do those leaders come from? They come from schools, or they come from homes, or they come from
society. Yeah.
Society. And in each of those spheres, they are educated. They're educated. In one, you might be educated by books. In another, you'll be educated by what you see. In another, you'll be educated by peer pressure. But you're educated nonetheless. What you learn will become the values that you carry. And those values that you carry will be the foundations, the cornerstones of the type of leader you will be.
Yes.
So every leader that is in a political seat today, anywhere around the world, owes what they do, what they have, to what they've learned. And if there are any teachers involved in that, they are implicit in it to some extent. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So we need to view education as the way in which our societies will end up being run, because the people in schools today are going to be in the hot seats tomorrow.
Yeah.
So there's a direct connection there, and this is a very important one.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So I see that I don't know if you are still, but I see that you are, you must be a public speaker, okay, and storyteller, okay, and you have demonstrated that in this.
I love stories.
Short conversation. Okay, so public speaking and storytelling in communication and education. What's the biggest benefits of you, an educator, being able to speak and to tell stories?
Right. This is what my kind of LinkedIn thing is all about.
Yes.
It's all about being able to shift perception and change minds. And that, I think, is where the public speaking and the storytelling come in.
Yeah.
I've been public speaking since I was about 15.
Wow.
A teacher saw something in me and pushed me. An English teacher I had called Mr. Shiner. I went to a school called Leon School, which is now, I think, Leon Academy, in a small town called Bletchley, in Milton Keynes in the UK.
Okay.
And
close to me.
For some reason, a teacher there, Mr. Shiner, who's passed away since then, he saw something in me and pushed me to enter competitions in public speaking. And I started off pretty badly, and slowly started winning trophies and then became a judge. It was like a Toastmasters thing, and a company called Stone and Webster at the time, which was involved. I've never lost the passion for it. I love talking. My wife and kids will tell you that. But more importantly, I love to tell stories. And it's not about stories. It's about giving people an opportunity to relate and understand to what you're saying, and then to be able to change your mindset, to get something good across to people. Why is this so important in education? Well, that's kind of how people learn. When I was teaching, and it's still my favorite part of education, being a leader is not as much fun as being a teacher, I'll tell you that now. When I was teaching, one of my favorite phrases, if any of my students were listening to this, they'll attest to this, is when I say, okay, close your books. When I say, okay, close your books,
that means story time.
Oh my God, you knew Mr. Welbeck is about to unleash. He's about to unleash. He's about to tell you about something which is really going to have an effect. Well, this is where my impact was. I'll be honest with you. I would very cleverly connect it to the content that we're doing. That's the whole purpose of it.
Yeah.
But I would plan it sometimes and sometimes not plan it. Sometimes it would come into my mind. But the idea was to use this form of communication to be able to allow students to really relate to what it is that they need to learn. And when you can relate to what you're learning, you can remember it.
Yes.
You can understand
it. Very important.
It.
Yes.
Yeah. And then you can use that in other contexts, which is what we're talking about assessment. When you've learned something and can use it in a new context, now we know that the understanding is there. And the best way to gain that is to relate it to your life so that you understand it well. And so this is where I think the benefits are. That's in school. When you leave school, communication becomes everything.
Yeah.
And if it's something which you have not had the opportunity to develop, then you will struggle. There are people today that struggle to communicate what they want at work, who struggle to communicate what they aspire to within relationships when they get married. There are people who have some fantastic ideas and could spearhead so many great innovations and changes, but don't know how to communicate them. There are people who, look, apparently if you Google it, America's biggest fear, for Americans, not America as a country, but for individuals in America, the biggest fear is public speaking. That's what gives people the biggest jitters.
No, it's not only Americans, it's worldwide.
I'd imagine so. I mean, that's the stat that I've seen, on Google. And for me, that is, I can understand it because I remember having that. But having developed it, I can now see how important it is for me.
Yeah.
And how important it is for organizations that I'm responsible for. And then also how important that is for advocating change. You know, some of the best storytellers I know aren't teachers. They are businessmen. They are, philanthropists. They are change makers in all sorts of fields.
Yeah.
But what they do really, really well is they tell stories. They inspire people. And when you inspire people, people follow you. And when they follow you, change happens.
Yeah.
So there's a direct connection.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. One of the things, my first job in the world is teaching. My very first job, because in Nigeria, when you graduate from a tertiary institution, we do what we call the NYSC, National Youth Service Corps. Okay. So after my BSc, I was a teacher in my own secondary school. So I went back there and I was a biology teacher for that would be year 10.
Okay. Right. All right. So you're one of us. You've been in the trenches.
Yeah. See, so now, before then, I have never stood in front of 30, 40 students.
Okay.
But looking at what my parents did, and when I was in school, in university, I was a very bold person. I normally stand up in front of, I stood up, but in the midst of other students. Okay, to talk about things. So I was a little bit comfortable to do that. And I've also learned some little things about storytelling. Because my father is pretty good at it, you know. So storytelling and public speaking is very, very important. Like you said, it's a very necessary skill that teachers, educators, parents, business people need to learn. So Sam, we've gotten to the last bus stop.
Okay.
In our conversation. Okay.
I've just realized the time as well because I'm going to have to go and pray. It's Friday.
Okay. So one thing.
Yeah, sure. Hit me.
Thing. What's your vision for African education in the next 20, 30 years?
Oh, you've thrown me the hardest question right at the end.
Okay.
Look again. I feel like a bit of a fraud here because my knowledge of the continent is weak. Okay. And I think that's got to be what I'm gonna talk about then. Okay. The reason my knowledge of the continent is weak is because I haven't paid attention to it. And one of the reasons I haven't paid attention to it is it's not at the forefront of most of our minds, especially for those in the diaspora who have moved away, whose parents, became either economic or other migrants and went to other parts of the world to raise their kids. My vision for Africa is that it becomes a continent on the forefront. I can see Africa beginning to shift in terms of media, in terms of music, in terms of dance, in terms of culture. I can see Nollywood building, and we're beginning to enter the homes of people around the world, and people are beginning to talk about Africa in a slightly different way than they did when I was growing up in the late 80s and 90s, when it was all about
poverty
and poverty. Right. So my vision for Africa and bringing education into it a bit is I hope people like me can start to have a focus on Africa to shift their mindset to helping Africa develop by going there, by helping in whatever capacity they can, by trying to start business in Africa. This is something which I would love, and I think Africa can enter the spaces of innovation and business, not just in dance and music. technology, and we talked about how, you know, the world is changing and how we've all become quite technological. Well,
yeah,
this is an opportunity for Africa because, you know, once you're connected to the internet, that's it, you're in. You're in. You're on the same platform as a guy from any other continent in the world and any other country in the world. You're on a level playing field.
yeah,
And we can narrow the gap for entrepreneurs in this playing field if we can just make sure that we raise the opportunities for Africans to start business and want to maintain a presence in Africa.
yeah.
I'm very passionate about this, although I don't have the knowledge behind it, so it might be a little bit confusing. But
No, don't worry. Your passion is the start.
It means a lot to me. I just
Yeah.
came from Ghana just a few weeks ago, and I was spending some time in a school called the Divine Wisdom School. It's a small school in a place called Kitasi, in a town called Akwapim in Ghana, and it's a school in which I saw students who were fantastic, with so motivated, so disciplined, so passionate, and so well educated. Their vocabulary, their grammar, their abilities shocked me. But more shocking was that they had very few resources to work with. There's not even a science lab for people that want to become doctors. I walked into an ICT class, there was no computer.
Wow.
Right? You know, Africa has an opportunity to enter, because of the internet world, we have an opportunity to enter a space in which maybe in the past wasn't available, because you had to get up and you had to go to another country and you had to set up.
Yeah.
Africans couldn't get the visas. We didn't have the resource. We couldn't do it. Now we can, but we are going to need, first, is those who enter that space are going to have to be well educated. And in order for that to happen, we need the resources in the school.
Yeah.
Right. So my vision for Africa in the next 20, 30 years time is that we are competing on a level playing field online. But in order for that to happen, we need Africans who are outside of Africa to put a focus on and shine a light on and get others to help and to do that on schools which need the resources in Africa. I'm not talking about charity. I don't want to go back to the late 1980s and 90s where we start singing "Feed the World" and, you know, Africans have flies on their faces and we need to help them. And Africa isn't all about that. There are some amazing things going on in the continent. But what it needs the children who left Africa, it needs them to come home, if not physically, then virtually, to put a focus on where the resources are needed within education, to be able to help kids have the knowledge they need to be able to enter this internet space and to be able to create business within that internet space. And to narrow the gap for those entrepreneurs. And that would be for me fantastic. I haven't rounded it up enough. I did say it was the biggest question that you've asked me.
Sam, you have done a great job on this question.
Thank you. I hope it makes sense.
See, yes, people like me who is still outside Africa need to put more focus on the continent. We all need to work together to make Africa the continent we are envisioning it to be.
Absolutely. And we do that in small steps. Let's do it in small steps. Let's do it with Divine Wisdom. Can I mention the name again?
Yes.
Divine Wisdom School in Kitasi, Akwapim. And you know what? I promised them that I'm going to try, and I'm going to start using my LinkedIn platform to try to raise awareness specifically for this school. It's going to take small steps. And if I can do it for this school, maybe I can widen it. And if I can do it, other people can do it. And if we keep doing that, then we'll achieve something.
Very, very good. Sam, thank you very much for being a great guest.
Thank you.
Father, like I said, my father will be happy to listen to this podcast. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah. Take care. Bye.
And you. Bye-bye. Take care. Bye-bye.